three units. So we have block one, that is on international marketing environment. The block two talks of marketing mix. Third block talks of strategies. The fourth block covers international marketing research, and block five talks about international marketing and regulatory environment. So, what we will be going through in today's session is the first unit, that is international marketing, nature and scope. So, let me start with what this overview consists of. Here, when we are talking in terms of international marketing, the first thing that we need to look at is, let's go to block one first. I'm just scrolling through the textbook that you may have already got a copy of. Okay, so here we are, and what is international marketing? So when we talk in terms of international marketing, what we need to understand is it is an extension of the domestic market, and in the simplest manner possible. Most of the organizations today are working across the globe. So the perception is not just global products, but it is also to enhance the marketing that we are doing in a positive manner. So here, when we talk in terms of the reach of global market, we are talking in terms of not just the local customers, but international customers who are also privy to our products. They would be interested in purchasing our products. It could be due to a number of reasons. It could be in terms of the availability, the product quality, the pricing, or any other matter. So let us look in terms of what is international marketing and is it different from global marketing? No, they are both the same. Fundamentally, we are talking of the same aspect. What we are trying to consider here is that international marketing enables companies to reach out to customers internationally. So you're able to sell across multiple countries. And why would you want to do that? Fundamentally, to increase your sale and profitability. Brands are able to create a better position in the international market by conducting the marketing operations on an international level. So the need for international marketing is universally accepted. So today, if we are talking in terms of do I need to sell my product outside the local market, outside the purview of my current market, it is left to the business owner how they perceive what this approach should be. So, but overall, today more and more countries are not only looking at going beyond Indian globe, Indian lines, but also and entering into Indian market to sell their products. And here, why has this become important? Because of two reasons. One is the ease of transport. It has become very, very easy to transport your products globally, whether you're doing it by air, through ship, or even if it is IT related products, you're doing it to internet and Wi Fi. Second, all countries or most of the countries today are well connected due to more pervasive communication. So that also makes it far more simpler now to do international marketing. So, what? But if that is an understanding that we have, then the question arises: if I'm already doing well in my country, why do I need to study international marketing? The reason for this is international marketing has its own challenges. Each country has its own guidelines, it has its own laws, it has its own unique tastes. When we see in terms of, say, many of the drinks, for example, Coca Cola. Coca Cola, we know, has a common original brand, as a common original brand, which is universally available. However, what it also does is in each country that it enters into, it creates unique flavors which are very, very relevant to that country in terms of their taste, their flavor, their choices, and the even the packaging, the entire look and feel changes accordingly. Another example that we can consider is that of KFC. For example, when KFC entered into Indian market, first it was originally selling what it was selling all over the world. But then understanding what the challenges are of the Indian domestic market and what are the requirements, the company had to tweak its product, tweak its content so that it is more suitable to the Indian palate. So that is why a lot of attention is paid to marketing internationally, whether it is in terms of the identification, targeting, and decisions that are taken for a universal market. Another element that we need to understand is international marketing brings together several countries for the purpose of trading. And how is this possible? By facilitating free trade. So when we talk in terms of free trade, we are not talking in terms of the taxes or any other laws and regulations that are available. But what we are trying to talk about here at a very fundamental level is that trade means that if I wish to enter from India to the US market, I have every possibility to do so, subject to the condition that I fulfill the regulations of the US government and their trading conditions. So, when we are talking about trading, another important element that comes up is marketing mix. All of you would be aware of what is a marketing mix in terms of the product, price, place, and promotion. But we also talked about a different aspect, that is the preference of people residing in different countries. So we are trying to understand how international marketing fits in this backdrop. So we will also talk in terms of each of these blocks. But at this point, I would like to move to the first block, that is international marketing environment. Today, the world has emerged as a global market, and the opportunities emerging in any nation are not enjoyed by that single nation. However, other nations in the world can also benefit from them. And due to global thinking, liberal dealing with others, positive attitudes have developed towards privatization. If all of you recall, in 1991, there was a lot of hue and cry when India opened its markets to the international world through a program called LPG under the mantle of Professor Manmohan Singh and our late Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao. So, what this talked about was the liberalization, privatization, and globalization. We will touch upon this as an example that will run through many of our sessions so that we understand why this LPG was necessitated in India. Similarly, other countries have also opened up their doors to allow for free international trade. So the factors that impact these international business environment has to be also taken into consideration before taking any decision on marketing activities and our expansion beyond the domestic horizon. So all companies can enter into different markets in different modes of entry. It could be, however, restricted in terms of the size of the business, the expansion strategies, the potential size of the market, the demand of chosen international market, what is their expectation, the economic and the business environment of the overseas nation, to name a few. Now let us move to the first unit, that is international marketing, nature and scope. So while you are studying this unit 1, you need to first understand what are the objectives of this unit and how is the structure outlined before we go into the details. So while I'm scrolling through both the objectives and the structure, let us go to the first aspect of unit 1, that is introduction. Today, the world has emerged as a global market. The opportunities emerging in any nation are not enjoyed by that nation only. So, other markets and other nations also can derive the benefit as we discussed earlier. This has changed over a period of time. However, what we also need to understand is that markets don't work in isolation. There is a restriction of a global political empowerment resulting in interdependency of countries. There's a rapid advance in technology, communication, and transportation facilities, which have led to the emergence of MNCs, what are known as multinational companies around the world. So, expanding business to international markets gives business an advantage to connect with new customers and new business partners. For example, Apple, the tech giant, designs its iPhones in California and outsources its manufacturing jobs to different countries like Mongolia, China, Korea, Taiwan. Now, there is also a discussion about iPhone coming into iPhone parts being manufactured in India because of the changing political environment in China. However, we see that Apple brings back all the subparts to one single country and then it transmits them or it sells them or trades them from that country. They are distributed across the world, but there is a single point from which these products are mostly routed through. So, what have we seen here? One, that while manufacturing, Apple has also reached across to different countries. At the same time, while selling its products, also Apple has not restricted its business to a nation, but has rather expanded it to throughout the world. So this is the advantage of international marketing. So the more places a business is, the more connections it can make with the world. And the more connections it can make with the world, the more products it can sell. So let us look in terms of international marketing and how it is defined. An important definition that we can consider here is the American Marketing Association, which defines the term as international marketing is multinational process of planning and executing the conception, pricing, promotion, and distribution of ideas, goods, and services to create exchange that satisfy individual and organizational objectives. A few keywords that we should consider through this definition and which will continue to apply throughout our sessions are first, that it is a process of planning and executing. There are two steps to it. Just planning is not enough. You need to plan how to enter a market and you need to also execute that plan. And what is it that you are executing and planning? The conception, pricing, promotion, and distribution. So, all aspects of a product. And is it just a product in its basic sense? No, it can be ideas, concepts, goods, services. To create exchange, how is this exchange possible? For example, somebody sitting in the US wants to create a website. They need not reach out to only their US market. They can come to India and get their website designed through our IT companies here. So, are IT companies providing them a good? No. Are they providing them an idea? No. Are they providing them a service? Yes. So, what a company does is dependent on the nature of their business. But at the same time, we need to understand that both individual and organizational objectives have to be met. If you are looking at Dole and Low's definition, they're also talking in terms of the same elements, that is, it is the firm is making one or more marketing mix decisions across national boundaries. And at the more complex level, the firm is establishing manufacturing facilities overseas and coordinating marketing strategies across the globe. We just spoke of Apple, and this is one example. And according to Katoria and Graham, international marketing is the performance of business activities designed to plan, price, promote, and direct the flow of a company's goods and services to consumers or users in more than one nation for a profit. So, if you are looking at all the definitions that are listed here, including that of Sorati et al., it talks of the same aspects of how we are leveraging our marketing mix to not restrict ourselves to just the domestic market, but take it to an international level. Now, let's talk in terms of nature and scope of international marketing. Uh, Meanwhile, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask me at the end of the session, or you can also put in your query in the chat box, and we will address the questions at the end of the session. But that is only a guideline. However, if the query is something that you would like to address immediately, please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time, and I'll be happy to take your question. So, nature and scope of international marketing. Now, this is an element that we need to consider in a lot of depth. For example, the first one is access to broader markets. So, this is the reason that we are not restricting the product sale to only the local market, but we are also taking it internationally. The second one is it involves at least two sets of uncontrollable variables. What are these uncontrollable variables? So, in international marketing, we will talk of these uncontrollable variables in more detail uh, over a period in time. But what we need to understand is that in the at a very fundamental level, in domestic marketing, it is only one set of uncontrollable variables, that is the local, whereas the local rules and regulations. But when you're talking in terms of international marketing, we are talking of not only the domestic rules and regulations, but we're also talking of the standards and the guidelines set in other countries. They are not within the control of the business, but outside the business environment. So that is why they are considered as uncontrollable variables. The third aspect is it requires a broader competence. Special management skills and broader competence is required because you need to understand how different countries work. The rules and regulations, as we have been talking about, are different for different countries. The requirements are different. The consumer needs and perceptions are different. So there are specialists who work in only specific countries in certain industries, and they do not go beyond that market. And rightly so, because the company is able to leverage on such uh, specialists and are able to enter that particular market. For example, I wish to enter into Singapore, and I know some local contacts there who are able to help me set up my business or expand my business into that country. So I would definitely want to leverage on such options because that helps me to have a smooth transaction with the locals in Singapore. The fourth one is competition is intense. So, international marketing, we need to understand that you're not only competing at the domestic level, but also with international competitors. And similarly, what happens is where we are going into a new market, similarly, international companies may also be entering into our market and competing locally. So, we need to understand aspects from both ends. The next one is involves high risk and challenges. International marketing is prone to various kinds of risk and challenges. It could be in terms of political risks or cultural differences, changes in fashion and style of foreign customers, sudden wars that we are seeing now, for example, in Iran and Israel, which is moving at loggerheads, changes in government rules and regulations. This particularly we often see in terms of food, medicines, etc. Communication challenges due to language and cultural barriers. However, as we move more closer to a global market, these challenges are reducing because we have translation tools, for example, which are helping us to translate in our products and services to different markets, and also be able to understand what their requirement is. So, what we are talking is localizing our products, goods, or ideas to their market, and similarly embodying what they most resonate with. Next one is trade bloc and their impact. So several participation of nations involve European Union, LAFTA, ASEAN, EFTA, and CACM. Now these are various blocs that are have been designed by different countries coming together to help in free world trade, and they operate in certain uh, specified countries or across specified countries or particular geographies only. Like, for example, European Union or Latin American, etc. Now, let's move to the next one, that is features of international marketing. There's a large scale operation that it offers, because especially when you're looking at retail basis, you're not looking at just local marketing, but you also need to understand in terms of the logistics. How do I transport? Selling, if I want to sell in Kazakhstan, how do I transport my goods there? Who will handle them? And what about warehousing? What about retailing? So these are all questions that will arise as we increase our operations. The second one is the predominant presence of MNCs in developed countries. So MNCs are present worldwide. So they have a scene of international marketing. They have a sense of what is required over there, because they have been working or operating in that market far longer. So they are more efficient and they work on economies of scale. The other aspect that we need to understand is international restrictions. In domestic marketing, there are no restrictions, except maybe in terms of the type of good, or in terms of say for example medicines. We cannot buy psychiatric medicines over the counter, it has to have a prescription, uh, a doctor's prescription. So there are aspects like that, but otherwise we are talking about not having any restrictions. I can sell in any part of India, and rightly so. Whereas in international marketing, there are various restrictions. It could be in terms of tariff or non-tariff, because of the protective policies followed by different countries. So the trade barriers are adopted practically by all countries. For example, in our country, when someone wants to export foreign made liquor to India, there are a number of restrictions that apply. The taxes that are levied are also far different. So these are aspects that we need to understand. The presence of trading blocs, like we have talked about EU, European Union, NAFTA, North American Free Trade Area, a couple of blocs which are very predominant. They have a lot of control in terms of the kind of decisions that are taken in terms of trade barriers. So these are two trading blocs that are important, NAFTA and European Union, EU. But do consider all the blocks as important, because of the kind of market that you are trying to enter into. The next aspect is the three-phase competition. So when we are talking in terms of three-phase competition, what is that? What does this mean? This means competition from other suppliers of exporters company, from local producers of importing company, and from the exporters of competing nations as well. So there are other nations also which are entering into that same market. So there is a threefold competition that we are looking at. The other aspect that we need to consider is the international forums. So, international trade is regulated by international forums like World Trade Organization and UNCTAD. So, international marketers have to have a deep understanding of all these aspects. Then, the international marketing risk. So, you cannot enter into any market, whether it is domestic or international, without studying the different social, cultural, economic, and political environment of the global market. Next is sensitive and flexible. So here we are talking in terms of international marketing is a very sensitive and flexible in character. Why is it sensitive? Because of any political or economic reasons, if there is a fluctuation in that country's guidelines in terms of the rules and regulations, or any differences between the two countries in terms of, say, political differences that we are seeing, for example, between India and Canada, there is kind of a lull that has happened suddenly. That can affect very well how the market comes into play. So this needs to be understood. The next one is advanced technology. So when you're talking in terms of advanced technology, in most cases we talk in terms of USA, Japan, and Germany because of the kind of quality and technology that they use in production and marketing of their goods. However, it is no more restricted to these three countries. India has also shown a good growth in some products where we are, at the top of the game. So it's also lengthy and time consuming. It's far easier because of the to sell in domestic market vis-a-vis over long distances. Restrictions are there, and then there are payment difficulties, procedural formalities. For example, if I'm shipping, then I need to get documents from not only the nation where I'm entering into, but there are also a lot of bank documents, shipping documents, approvals, custom duties. All these factors need to be considered before I can sell my product. Another important aspect is the currency difference. Now, if I am converting the currency back into my, say, Indian rupee, does it make sense in terms of my production, my transportation cost, and my final selling price to sell in that market? Is the margin enough? Is a profit significant enough for me to sell? Of course, there is also a wide scope in terms of, like we said, the product planning, the development, pricing, packaging, and other factors of a product. But one important thing that we need to understand is when we are talking in terms of international marketing, it is not something that I can do in a jiffy. I need to plan well ahead, and it's a long term process. Now, let us briefly look at a comparison between domestic and international marketing. So, here we are talking about marketing is defined as a set of activities which are undertaken by the companies to provide satisfaction to the customers through value addition and making good relations with them to increase their brand value. So, the basic thing that we are talking here is in terms of value addition. What more am I adding over my domestic product? Is it the finer packaging? Is it the product? Is it the quality? You will often find that the same product that we buy in different countries comes in different packaging. It comes in a different quality. If you're buying, say, M&Ms at one point in time in the USA and you would have bought it in other countries, you would have noticed the difference. The packaging is different, the quality is different, the type of, the actual product of M&M is also different. So these are all challenges that we face. However, we also need to understand that these are also opportunities for us to change our product and service or idea into something that is acceptable over a broader market. So, when we're talking in terms of domestic marketing, you're talking of commercialization. However, it is restricted to one country. However, in international marketing, the commercialization, that is the selling of products and services, is extended beyond the country's shores. course, in domestic marketing, there are certain advantages. When we are talking about language obstruction in a country as widespread as in India, with over 200 languages, we cannot say that language obstruction does not happen. However, we have learned to circumvent that. We have learned to overcome that. And similarly, it has also become for us a helping hand in terms of how we are able to reach other countries. Whereas in terms of international marketing, we need to understand the laws of that particular country. We need to understand the consumer preferences. And we also need to understand that the strategies that apply in the domestic market may have to be tweaked to the requirement of diverse buyers. So, further, we are looking at domestic marketing versus international marketing and how they are different in terms of a the definition and how politics applies domestic marketing the political factors are fewer, whereas as we have discussed in a couple of examples earlier today, the political factors play a vital role. The language and cultures may not be applicable in India in terms of one language and culture. We are a very diverse country with multiple languages and multiple ethnicity and culture that is predominant in different parts of the country. However, that is what applies internationally as well. And that is why they say that if you are selling in India, it is as good as selling across a bunch of nations. The financial climate is more or less uniform. However, in certain products, the state regulations may apply. For example, in terms of, say, again, liquor within India also. However, in terms of, say, an international market, there is a variety of financial climate that is involved. The risk involved is normal, whereas the higher risk in international market because we don't know that market. The control of marketing activities is far easier in the domestic market, whereas it's a little more different and challenging because of the regional, cultural, political differences across countries. Payment risk we know is far less within the nation as compared to the different currencies that are available across the country. The familiarity, you know what your market is like locally. However, that doesn't apply elsewhere. The knowledge is required both in terms of Indian or domestic market and international market. However, as we discussed a while ago, you will also need to have specialized knowledge of the requirements of that country in addition to your own domestic country. And that is where international marketing becomes a bit of a challenge. The product mix is more or less decided based on customers. It doesn't matter whether it is domestic market or international market. At the end of the day, the customer is the king and they have to be satisfied. So the product planning and development, here we are talking in terms of restriction to a domestic market, whereas in international we are talking in terms of a foreign market. Focus is on general information in locally, whereas there is more of a strategic emphasis when we are cutting across boundaries. So the market aspect is much more homogeneous in a typical nation, although there can be different segments. Whereas in terms of an international market, it's more fragmented, it is more heterogeneous. So, the next aspect that we are going to consider is why are we looking at entering into international market. Now, when we are talking in terms for more or terms of the motive for a firm to go internationally, it can be considered in terms of pull factors and push factors. What are pull factors? Pull factors are proactive. They are the forces of attraction which pull the business to the international market. So suddenly there is a, for example, I'm selling some milled manufactured rice in India, and I suddenly find that in Africa there is a market for such milled manufactured rice. When I'm saying manufactured rice, Please understand, I'm not talking of grown, grown rice in farms or fields. I'm talking of manufactured rice, which is pulverized and manufactured in factories. Now, suddenly we find that in South Africa, there is a requirement for pulverized rice or manufactured rice. So there is a pull factor which is happening from there, and I'm automatically geared from India to go to that international market. However, there is also the second element, that is the push factor. What is this push factor? The push factors are reactive. They make compulsions of the domestic market, which prompts companies to internalize, and then they say that, hey, I need to go beyond my local market or my domestic market and enter into foreign markets. And what are they? First and foremost, we all know is a profit motive. So, what is a profit motive? At the end of the day, any company is there to increase the total profit. Their business to sell and thereby make profits. That is the fundamental goal of any business. The second one is growth opportunities. Now, when I am able to grow my business, I'm not only getting a profit on the products that I'm selling, however, I'm also able to sell more of my products and maybe sell different types of products. The third one is the domestic market constraints. Now, maybe there are too many competitors here. Maybe my product has become obsolete within my own country, but there are other countries where these products still have a market. So, I may wish to enter into that market because it becomes necessary for me to sell there and make a profit. Again, there is a larger market, we also have an advantage of scale of economy. Or if my country is in recession, then I may wish to enter into a different market to cover that gap of lowered sales here. The next one is competition. If I have too many competitors in the local market or too many foreign companies entering into my own country and selling their product, I may wish to enter. There is less competition or there is less foreign penetration. The next one is government policies and regulations. That can also be a push factor for many countries. It could be in terms of the payment of royalty, dividends. It can be the foreign exchange that that comes into the company. They could also both limit the scope or expand the scope beyond the home country. Then monopoly power. Here, when we are talking of monopolization of certain resources or patent rights or technological advantages or product differentiation, which may be a key element in your own market. However, when you open up your doors to outside countries, this monopoly may not apply because that country may be welcoming multiple players. The spin off benefits. And what is the spin off benefits? Here we are talking in terms of the foreign image and growth. It is you have been in an international market, but the minute you say I have a presence in some X country, automatically there's a spin off benefits available not just locally but outside as well. And the final point is in terms of a strategy vision. So here the company is saying that I'm not looking at just India, I'm looking at foreign companies, say pharmaceutical firms. For example, Dr. Reddy Lab sells many of its products, bulk drugs, beyond Indian market. So these are some things that we need to consider. The next aspect is in terms of an internationalization stage. So, a firm which is entirely domestic in its activities normally passes through different stages of internationalization before it becomes truly a global one. It is just not a matter of selling your product, but it is a matter of how your company is evolving, the evolutionary process, the different stages that have to be considered, and a company has to go through from moving from a local to a global company. So, in a global domestic company, there is something called ethnocentric. That means I'm looking at my own country and how it is within my own known market. So the growing stage one company, when it reaches its growth limits in its primary market, that is its domestic market, it diversifies into new markets, product technologies, instead of focusing on penetrating international markets. So this is the first step. So first it talks in terms of new markets within the country and some changes in the product technologies. But if factors like domestic market constraints, foreign market prospects, increasing competition, etc., facilitate the company to reorient its strategies to tap foreign market potential, then it moves into the next stage in the evolution. And what is the next stage? It becomes an international company. So from a domestic company, it has moved to the second stage, what we call as international company. Here, what the company is going through is what we call as a transitional stage or a transitional corporation. So the orientation of the company is basically still ethnocentric, but the marketing strategy is in an extension stage. That is, the marketing mix is developed for the home market, but it is extended into the foreign markets. Not much change happens. What I'm selling locally, I'm also selling in a different company country. Then the third one is the multinational company. So here what happens is from the second stage, we move to the third stage where the orientation shifts from ethnocentric to polycentric. That means the company has become truly multinational. So when you're talking about ethnocentric to polycentric, what we are saying is the company responds to the differences in different markets, and it moves into a stage three multinational where it has a multi domestic strategy. The focus of the stage three company is to become multinational. That means it has become in one term multi-domestic, meaning I'm still looking at my own country as a base. However, I'm further expanding into a multi-domain, a multi-area. So it is called as multi-domestic. Here, the strategy is focused on adaptation. I'm not truly creating any new products for the new markets. What I'm doing is I'm taking my own product that is currently being sold locally and I'm adapting it. I'm making some changes, limited changes to the new market. So, in multinational companies, another thing that we need to consider is each foreign subsidiary is managed as if it were an independent city state. That means, though they are part of the local market or the corporate office, but each country is part of a regional organization that reports to the world headquarters. The world headquarters, in most cases, if it is say India, it is based in India, but not necessarily so. I may initially start off with India, but later I may move to world headquarters. If we see the list of IT companies, particularly software companies, we see that many of them have moved their headquarters from India to mostly the US because that provides them a broader market, a broader presence, a better standing in terms of their own global presence. That is the general perception that most companies work with. The next stage, there is the fourth stage, is the global transitional corporations. So, according to Keegan, global company represents stage four and transnational company stage five in the evolution of companies. What we are talking here is both stage 4 and stage 5 are often treated as synonyms. That is, a global company and transnational company are treated as synonyms. But generally, when we talk in terms of a global corporation, what we are saying is it refers to the final stage in the development of the corporation. So, according to Keegan, the global company will have either a global marketing strategy. I'm not now looking from how I am selling my products in, say, my own domestic market or home market, and how I can expand or adapt my product internationally. What I'm looking at is truly a global marketing strategy or a global sourcing strategy, depending on what I'm trying to do. Whether I'm trying to source my input products or parts from different companies, or am I looking at selling my product to different companies, countries? I'm looking at global marketing strategy or a global sourcing strategy, but not both. So here I'm no more restricting myself to looking from the purview of my domestic market to other countries, but I'm sitting at the top and saying, okay, now that I am truly in the stage, the final stage. Now, how does it work? How does my strategy work? How do I strategize? So I sell my products across different nations, and at the same time, I'm also talking in terms of whether I need to change my strategy to suit the domestic or international channel. Now, let us talk in terms of the benefits of international marketing. The main advantage of international marketing is number one, it provides higher standard of living. Number two, there's an opportunity to specialize or spark innovations, upgrades, and efficiencies for products or services based on the ideas or feedbacks or experiences that we face outside the boundaries of our home country. The third one is ensure rational and optimum utilization of resources. It could be in terms of raw material, it could be in terms of consumer goods, or even machinery and services. The next one is a rapid industrial growth. So the minute there is a demand for new growth in international market, it leads to a growth in the industrial economy. There are new job opportunities. There is a complete utilization of natural resources, etc. For example, there are countries which from where we are importing coal, and there are also countries from where we are importing crude oil. Now, what is happening is, uh, so those countries when they are importing, say, crude oil or coal or machinery to India, or even planes to India, what they are looking at is also their local resources, and they are trying to optimize the natural resources. So, benefits of comparative cost. So, there is a comparative cost involved in all participating countries. This comes through because of the benefits of the division of labor and specialization in international market. There is also an international cooperation and workforce. So here what happens is, because there is a cycle that is being applied where developing countries are offering their resources at a lower price, there is there are several advanced countries which penetrate into that market and utilize the natural resources or utilize the manpower that is available at a lower cost. At the same time, the country from which they're resourcing also benefits, because and it helps to remove some of the economic disparities and the technological gap between the countries. So if US was earlier feeding on, say, China or Korea or India for its software developers, today the software or IT companies have grown in these countries to such a large extent that we are right at the top in or any of these countries and more are right at the top in terms of the quality or level of knowledge or technology that is being utilized. no one is behind in those terms. It also facilitates cultural exchange where there is a lot of trends and fashion followed in one nation, pass on to another, and there is a cultural relation between these countries. So, if you are talking in terms of Western adaptation of Indian clothes or Indian adaptation of Western clothes, this is just one of them. The next one is better utilization of surplus production. So if I have extra goods, I'm into the manufacturing of shirts. I have built an export house. I don't have enough market locally. So I'm looking at one country. Now, if that country becomes competitive in terms of the different players that are available over there, either from that own country or from my home country or from a neighboring country, then what do I do? I need to start looking at a totally different market, new market to sell those export surplus. Next one is the availability of foreign exchange, which is essential for import of goods and the expansion of tertiary sector. So when we're talking in terms of tertiary sector, that means initially I'm selling my products to one country, but from that country, my products may be moving to a different country, uh, and that is what we mean by tertiary sector. So it is an indirect sale that is happening, but at the same time, it also indirectly facilitates the use of transport, banking, and insurance in a country, which is like a transit point to another country or another market. Now, when you're talking in terms of international orientation, another aspect that we need to understand is what Wynne Douglas and Perlmutter has talked about. They talked about providing an EPRG approach to analyze the degree and nature of involvement in international business. Now, what is this EPRG approach? So, E stands for ethnocentric orientation, that is home country orientation. Second one is polycentric orientation, that is the host country orientation. We already talked about this when you're moving from stage one to stage two and so on. The third one is regiocentric orientation, that is regional orientation. And the fourth one is geocentric orientation, that is the world orientation. So, home country is the country where from where I'm operating. The host country is where I'm selling my products. Regional orientation is in terms of that particular region, for example, Latin America or Europe. And third is fourth one is geocentric, that is the world orientation. So let's move on to the next one, that is in terms of multinational companies. We'll talk about this briefly before we close today's session. So a multinational company is one which is incorporated in one country called the home country, but whose operations extend beyond the home country and which carries on business in other countries. So when I'm saying that India is my host country or home country, sorry, and I'm saying US is my host country. That means I manufacture my goods here. My company is incorporated here, or my services are being incorporated from this country. However, the actual recipient is someone else in sitting in some other nation. That is called the host country. So there are two players here. One is the home country, and second is the host country. So, in a multinational, we spoke of this. The headquarters of a multinational are always located in a home country. So here, they may have the head office in the home country, but they may have secondary offices, facilities, factories, industries, and other such assets in other countries. That is truly and possible. The fundamental point is they operate worldwide and hence they are also known as global companies. Now, some examples that we can consider here are companies like Microsoft, TCS, Tech Mahindra, Deloitte, Coca Cola, Accenture, Capgemini, IBM. These are all companies. Now, IBM and say Coca-Cola have come to India. Companies like Microsoft have come to India. They have gone across the world. All these companies have. Similarly, TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, or Tech Mahindra, or Accenture, or Capgemini have moved from India to other nations. So, according to the United Nations, the largest 100 multinational companies control about 40% of global trade. Now, this is an important figure that you need to understand. The largest 100 multinational companies control about 40% of global trade. Whereas in the past, the vast majority of the world's largest multinational companies have been European. That is, manufacturers of autos like Volkswagen, or food like Nestle, and petrol products like BP, or American like Ford cars, or Coca-Cola drinks, or Procter and Gamble home products, or Japanese like Toyota cars, Sony TVs and others, and Mitsubishi in multiple products. But in the over the turn of the century, we have seen that multinationals have emerged in other regions as well. For example, in South Korea, we have seen Samsung TVs and phones and other products, Hyundai cars, as we are all familiar with. Mexico, they have come up with Grupo Bimbo, Cemex, and China, Lenovo, and Huawei. These are all products which are familiar for us. Of course, Mexican products are not really very targeted to Indian markets. The salient features of multinational companies are: one, huge assets and turnover; second is unity of control; third is there is a mighty economic power because they are powerful economic entities. We just said that about 100 top multinational companies control 40% of the global trade. That's huge. So, a mighty economic power. They adopt advanced technology, and most of these come because they are also able to better invest in research and development, or R&D. They have better technological marvels, better quality products. The next one is professional management. They have evolved over a period, and they have employees who are specialized in certain fields, whether it is in terms of the funds, or it is in terms of technology, or it is in terms of business operations. So they attract some of the top talent to their company. And aggressive marketing. They don't shrink, they don't cut down on the spend, the marketing mix. They go all out to spend effectively if they have to enter a new market. It may even mean that initially they're selling products at a loss. The next one is the merits of MNCs. One is it increases the investment level. Second, which also means there is better income and employment in the host country. The second one is transnational corporations have become vehicles for the transfer of technology, especially to developing countries. The third one is they also kindle a managerial revolution in the host countries through professional management. The fourth one, the MNCs enable the host countries to increase their exports and decrease their import requirements. They work to equalize the cost of factors of production around the world. The next one is the enormous resources of the MNCs enable them to have very efficient R&D systems. So not only they invest in R&D, but they also are able to have more efficient R&D systems because of the time factor and the initial investment factor. Then MNCs also stimulate domestic enterprise to support their own operations. And they also help increase competition and break domestic monopolies. Unlike what most people used to earlier think, today competition is healthy because the more the competition, the better your product is. You are competing with some of the best globally. So for you to stand in the market, your product has to have that kind of quality and technology advancement. Now let's move to the demerits of MNCs. MNCs also have a due uh, uh, few disadvantages. One is most MNCs have a profit motive. Now, this can be considered as both a plus and a minus, but their interests may not align with the national interests of the host country. The second one is the presence of MNCs can restrict competition. It may in some instances cause even a monopoly or monopolistic competition. For example, when you're talking in terms of the FMCG products that are being sold in India, we see that though we have not, it is not a monopoly stage, but there are only a few players that are operating locally. So they also charge heavy fees and charges in their host countries. The next one is the tremendous power of the global corporation poses the risk they may threaten the sovereignty of the nation in which they do the business. And the next one is they cause fast depletion of some of the non-renewable natural resources in the host country. So that is a major concern and can also be a barrier to them entering a new market. They also use tactics like transfer pricing to avoid heavy tax liabilities by manipulating prices. We'll talk about this in more detail in the next few classes. And so, what are the barriers in international marketing? So, what makes international business strategy different is in terms of the political and legal differences, the cultural differences, the economic differences, the differences in the currency unit and the currency change that happens, the differences in the language, the differences in the marketing infrastructure. For example, an advertising medium in one country may not be very effective in another. So we need to understand that. Um, For example, in a country like India, social marketing may be very prevalent and it may be a very effective means of communication. However, in a country where there is not so much of utilization of social media, now that becomes a restriction in terms of the differences in the marketing infrastructure. So I need to find an alternate source of marketing platform. So the trade restrictions that apply and the high costs of distance and differences in trade practice. So, summarizing Unit 1, we are saying that international marketing involves the firm in making one or more marketing mix decisions across national boundaries as they go internationally. And at the complex level, it means maybe even establishing manufacturing facilities overseas and coordinating marketing strategies across the globe. So this is fundamentally today's session. So this is where we will stop today, and we will continue the next session uh, in the future. So thank you so much, and let me close today's session, and we'll catch up next week. Thank you, and